I love Boston, especially during the holiday season. The lights, the smells, the cold nip in the air. It feels like Christmas here. Hey there. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, come on, what's the matter, Ray? Do the holidays have you bummed out?
It's tough not to give in to the stress, the hustle, the commercialism. Plus, isn't Boston the very city that banned Christmas back in 1659? I mean, ever since I learned that during last year's New England Legends Christmas podcast, I can't help but think we're better off that way.
Oh, Ray, I mean, sure, Boston is the city that banned Christmas, but it's also the city that saved it, and arguably brought the holiday back to not just New England, but all of America.
All right, so what are we looking for while we're here in town, Jeff? The spirit of Christmas?
That's exactly what we're looking for. We're going to head into the lobby of the Parker House Hotel right here in the heart of downtown in search of the ghost of the man who brought Christmas to Boston. Hey, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger, and welcome to our 2018 New England Legends Podcast Christmas Special. This is officially episode 70.
And if you give us about 10 minutes, we'll give you something strange to talk about today.
Did you ever notice that putting sleigh bells over any piece of music automatically makes it a Christmas song?
That it does. We should try adding it to like Skinner's Freebird and just see what that sounds like.
If you legendary listeners would like to give us a holiday present, how about telling 2 of your friends about our podcast?
Or 3.
Yeah, or 3. Maybe post a review on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to us.
You could write it on a bathroom wall.
There you go. Those reviews go a long way, by the way.
They really do. Okay, Ray, we need to find you some holiday spirit right away.
All right, fine. Let's recap last year. In 1659, the Puritans were in control of Boston.
Right.
They viewed the practice of Christmas and making merry as, quote, satanic, right?
Right.
So they banned the practice because it's pagan. They'd fine you 5 shillings if you were caught dressing festive, singing, dancing, or whatever.
Terrible.
Connecticut even banned mincemeat pies.
So, has that ban on mincemeat pies ever been lifted?
I'm not sure, but I can honestly say I've never seen a mincemeat pie in Connecticut.
Okay, well, maybe there's a reason for that.
All right, but still, it makes you think maybe the Puritans were onto something with this holiday. Just make it another day.
Ray, the ugly sweaters, the eggnog, the lights. Wouldn't you miss it?
Yeah, but I'm curious how we got from a 5-shilling fine for dancing on Christmas to the Clark Griswold animatronic Christmas light overload we have today.
As I mentioned last year, the ban on Christmas only lasted until 1681. Under pressure from King Charles II, Massachusetts finally caved and decriminalized the holiday. But that doesn't mean it was celebrated. It was just a regular workday, and schools were in session for almost another 2 centuries.
So what changed?
How the holiday came to be not only recognized in New England, but highly celebrated, is exactly the story we're here to tell from right here in the lobby of the Parker House Hotel in Boston. And they say this very lobby is haunted.
Ooh.
But we'll look for that ghost later. First, let's go back to 1842. It's 1842, and this man, let's call him Chuck,
Okay, hi, Chuck.
steps off the boat in Boston Harbor. He's just had this arduous journey over from England, but the 30-year-old Brit was excited to see this still relatively new country called America.
Chuck loved Boston, the streets, the people, but there was something about our country he didn't like at all.
What's that?
Slavery.
Ah, yes, our country's original sin.
Chuck wrote about his experience in America in 1842 after a brush with slavery.
We stopped to dine at Baltimore, and being now in Maryland, were waited on for the first time by slaves. The sensation of exacting any service from human creatures who are bought and sold, and being, for the time, a party, as it were, to their condition, is not an enviable one. The institution exists, perhaps, in its least repulsive and most mitigated form in such a town as this. But it is slavery. And though I was with respect to it an innocent man, its presence filled me with a sense of shame and self-reproach.
Chuck is disgusted with seeing slavery in America, and he's not shy about telling others about it in his writing.
What does any of this have to do with Christmas?
Well, it turns out this guy, Chuck, will soon have a lot to do with Christmas.
Okay.
He doesn't just write travel memoirs, he writes all kinds of stories, and he's pretty good at it, too.
Huh.
In fact, all over Europe, he's getting to be quite a big deal.
Well, meanwhile, back in America, time goes by. By 1856, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts officially recognizes Christmas as a holiday. But that doesn't mean they embrace it. It's just another day without much fanfare. In fact, in Boston, you still don't get the day off from school or work. Not yet. And then the 1860s arrive, and with it, the Civil War. A war that almost tears this country apart. The Civil War takes a heavy toll on the country. So many lives lost, economies devastated. It's as bad as it gets. And when the war ends in April of 1865, it's time for the nation to try and heal. They need to focus on good things because for far too long, they'd only focused on the bad.
Chuck, over in England, is paying attention to the news from America. He sees that the Civil War was over, slavery is abolished, and the people are hurting. But Chuck knows a thing or two about how an uplifting story can really help, because he'd written an uplifting story or two in his day. By 1867, Chuck is ready to come back to America.
On November 19th, 1867, Chuck returns to Boston's port from England. He'd already considered this city his second home. But weary from travel, he makes his way over to the Parker House Hotel, where he'll soon be joined by some pretty big deal friends.
Yeah, friends like Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, and Oliver Wendell Holmes, to name a few.
You see, Chuck had written this really great story he published in England back on December 19th, 1847. It sold out of its first printing in 5 days and had gone on to make Chuck a pretty popular guy.
So when he comes to Boston, his big deal friends tell him he really needs to give some public readings of his story. Well, Chuck agrees. He knows this story will help a hurting country during a time of year when it's good to celebrate. Besides, he knows that no one is useless in this world who lightens the burdens of another.
So Chuck is upstairs in the Parker House Hotel practicing the reading of his uplifting story in front of a mirror for hours.
No warmth could warm, no wintry weather chill him. No wind that blew was bitterer than he. No falling snow was more intent upon its purpose. No pelting rain less open to entreaty. Foul weather didn't know where to have him.
Chuck is practicing, visiting with friends, and taking in the sights and sounds of this great city.
Boston is what I'd like the whole United States to be,
Chuck once said of Beantown. He's a fan, and he knows exactly what this city needs. It needs a little Christmas. Then, the big day of his first show arrives, December 3rd, 1867. The venue is the Tremont Temple in Boston, and Chuck is ready to read his uplifting story to the people of the city.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, reading his work, A Christmas Carol, Mr. Charles Dickens.
Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it. And Scrooge's name was good upon, changed.
Though Scrooge has only scorned for Christmas, and a humbug for anyone who celebrates it, not everyone in his life feels the same way. His nephew, for one.
There are many things from which I might have derived good, by which I have not profited, I dare say, returned the nephew. Christmas, among the rest. But I am sure I have always thought of Christmas time, when it has come round, apart from the veneration due to its sacred name and origin. If anything belonging to it can be apart from that, as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time, the only time I know of in the long calendar of the year, when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely, and to think of people below them as if they really were fellow passengers to the grave, and not another race of creatures bound on other journeys. And therefore, uncle, though it has never put a scrap of gold or silver in my pocket,
Charles Dickens begins to weave his tale of the miserly Ebenezer Scrooge and his encounters with the ghost of Jacob Marley.
The cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, then coming up the stairs, and then coming straight towards his door. "It's humbug still," said Scrooge. "I won't believe it." His color changed, though, when, without a pause, it came on through the heavy door and passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in
the story, Scrooge is given a second chance. But he first must be visited by three spirits: the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
The story is so powerful because quickly the Boston audience in front of Dickens understands who Scrooge is. He's us. We're Scrooge. We're getting older and more crotchety. We're forgetting the wonders and joys of our youth, ignoring the plight of our fellow man, and we realize that though we may be working and saving up a few bucks, it might be costing us our soul.
The Boston audience is transfixed as Charles Dickens tells his tale of Scrooge's Christmas redemption. Like Scrooge, they're transformed by this ghost story of this bitter man who is softened at the feet of the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may...
Scrooge was saved and changed his ways.
Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world.
When Dickens finished his reading of A Christmas Carol, witnesses described how the audience let out an almost collective sigh. They too had changed, and that takes a moment to reconcile. But only a moment, because soon that sigh and silence was replaced by a thunderous applause.
There would be more readings in the weeks to come, and one attendee of the Christmas Eve performance, a Mr. Fairbanks, was so inspired by Dickens' story that he decided to close his factory the following day for Christmas, and he sent each of his workers a turkey.
Christmas finally came to Boston.
That story, Jeff, A
Yeah.
Christmas Carol, it gets me every time.
Me too.
Thank you for the reminder.
It gets us all. A wave of Christmas spirit moved through the Commonwealth of Massachusetts after that. People understood this is a time for charity, for gift giving, for looking out for each other, and merriment. Dickens' book became a huge bestseller in the United States, and just 3 years later, in 1870, U.S. President Ulysses S. Grant declares Christmas a national holiday. No more work or school on that day by order of the president, who was influenced, in part, by a guy who once stood on a stage in Boston and told a ghost story.
Wow. Now, as I look around the lobby of the Parker House Hotel here in downtown Boston, I'm getting chills just thinking that Charles Dickens stood right here.
Yeah.
But you said this hotel is haunted?
That's what they say. We're going to head up to the mezzanine level. There's something I heard about that's hanging on the wall up there.
All right. So what are we looking for?
A mirror. There it is.
All right. Well, that's a mirror by the elevator. What's so special about it?
Okay, come over here and read that little plaque on the wall next to it, Ray.
Okay. It says, mirror from the rooms at the Parker House occupied by Charles Dickens, 1867 and 1868, authenticated by the Boston branch of the Dickens Fellowship. And there's a quote.
Okay.
Look closely and see reflections of Dickens as he practiced A Christmas Carol. Whoa!
Charles Dickens stood in front of this mirror practicing a story that would bring Christmas to a city and a nation that really needed it. And some say you can still catch a glimpse of his spirit in this very mirror. So I guess we'll stand here and watch for a minute.
All right, I get it now. A ghost and its story really can change the world. Jeff, I think I'm ready to head back outside and check out all the Christmas lights.
All right.
Merry Christmas, Jeff.
Merry Christmas, Ray.
And so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us, everyone.
From all of us who work on the New England Legends podcast and television show, we'd like to wish each and every one of you the happiest of the holiday season. No matter what you celebrate, we're grateful you lend us your ears each week. And we're thankful you tell others about our podcast.
We really do appreciate all of you guys. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank Dave Schrader for lending his voice acting talent this week. And we'd also like to thank Michael Legge for bringing Charles Dickens back to life for us. What do you think, Michael? Would you like to take us home on this one?
Until next time, remember, the bazaar is closer than you think.